Hello, I'm Mayor Cashenna A. Cross of the City of Glenarden, and welcome to this Mayoral Community Forum. Today's forum is entitled The Community Forums for Evolving Diaspora-Multicultural Approaches in Our Municipalities. This Glenarden Mayoral Community Forum seeks to build advocacy and also for residents and citizens to obtain resources that are needed to evolve the maximum potential in our society. It increases our ingenuity. It also ensures that there is an independence in productivity and greater increased integration within our community, which is why this mayoral forum, I'm sure, is going to be one of our best ever. Today, I am lucky to be joined on this line by a young lady who I met at the NAACP Prince George's County's Gala, the Freedom Gala. And we are talking today with Miss Candace Boykins. Hello, Miss Candace.
Hi, how are you doing, Mayor? How are you?
Doing wonderful. So I'm going to
Good.
give the audience a little bit of information about your C&J Migrant Solutions Foundation. You are a compassion, you are an empowerment, and you are every journey of the migrants. And they are helping our migrant community to understand and to be supported by visionary dedication to serving the unique needs of our Black migrants, Afro-Latinas, and providing them with a comprehensive immigration solution that includes education, resources, and able to navigate complex terrain of the immigration and dignity and resilience process. So I'm going to tell you right now that word and all of everything that I've read, dignity and resilience. Now, I'm a 20-year retired veteran from the United States Air Force,
Mhm.
and one thing they taught us was about preserving the dignity
Dignity.
of yourself, dignity of the force. That's why our values were service before self, excellence in all we do, and above all that, integrity. So dignity and resilience. C&J Migrant Solutions understands that there is a process that is very daunting and overwhelming, particularly for those who face financial barriers and lack access to essential support services. So you have been committed to breaking down these barriers and ensuring that every individual, regardless of their backgrounds and their circumstances, has the opportunity to pursue their dreams to a brighter future. I'm glad
Yes.
you're on this mayoral community forum. The city of
Thank you.
Glenarden has a preponderance African American community.
Hmm.
However, I will say we have a growing Latina community thanks to a lot
Yes.
of the development that's happening in around Prince George's County. But we also have a mixed community of Nation of Africa as
Yes.
well as Asiatic, and we're building in our Caucasian residential base. So we are really multicultural when you talk
Yes.
about the city of Glenarden, and the immigrant solution is definitely something that we could have a little bit more appreciation, education, and understanding about. And that's why this mayoral forum and the works that you're doing with C&J Migrant Solutions Foundation, I believe is going to be immensely helpful as we look at driving into a more progressive, positive future here in the city of Glenarden. Welcome
Yes.
aboard.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that great introduction. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Mayor. It's good to be here to talk about the services that we do and how we are committed to helping the city of Glenarden. I live in the city of Glenarden, so this is definitely very important to me.
Amen. Now, listen, when you talk about our migrants, just tell me what that means to C&J Migrant Solutions Foundation. How do you determine a migrant?
So that word
Because
is very
technically, we're all
tricky,
migrants, right? A few of
technically.
us.
And I was just going to say that
For the American
because
Indian.
that is that is why that word is very tricky, by the dictionary definition. It talks about farm work. right? Farm workers. But if you really look at the word migrant, it really is talking about people that are not born in a certain place. And that is, you know, my definition. You were migrated somewhere, you were taken from your home and placed somewhere else. So that is migration, right? So when you're a migrant, you're implant into another country. And due to that implantation, you don't necessarily are treated as or
Uh-oh, did it go off on you? I think we lost you there,
sorry.
Candace. Okay. It's still muted, Candace.
Okay, sorry about that. So
Got
when it
it.
comes to being a migrant, you know, being implanted, we are not here, right? We don't have several access to certain things that everyone else would have access to. So that is one of the reasons why C&J is very dedicated to supporting the migrants here in Glenarden. And really in Prince George's County, per se, because of the lack of resources that we do have. When it comes to the reason why we focus on the Black migrant community is for this reason. We don't have that resource. A lot of the resources are spread out in different areas and places, but we don't have those resources that trickle down to the different minorities. So we take pride into getting that to the
Excellent,
migrants.
excellent.
Yes.
You know, I looked up a little research myself on migrants and immigrants, really. There's 201,700 immigrants that are recorded as residing in Prince George's County. So that's about 22% of the total population. So that's a
Yes.
large sum of our population. Now, one of the concerns, as you said, the resources, the key concerns that I know is deportation. As we look at on the national level, particularly, you know, on our western border, the most troublesome thing for most of our immigrants population is the deportation. With the deportation, we have about 119,400 non-citizens that are residing in Prince George's County. And each day they are at a risk of being deported.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the interesting thing is many of our foreign-born population in Prince George's County find reputable work, like even, you know, construction work or odds and ends work. We would, you know, normally we call them the truck workers, because you drive up to Home Depot, they jump in, you tell them what job you need, they get it taken care of. So, but that is a large risk. And relative to our children, we're looking at about 83,500 children in Prince George's County who have at least one immigrant parent. Those are really staggering numbers. And you know, we're 1 million here in Prince George's County. So when you start talking about 22% of the population, now this is an election year, so we have to say we got to call the elephant in the pink room, right? Pink elephant in the room, huh? But the elephant in the pink room, there it is. We have to call it out, because if 22% of your population is immigrants, unregistered, with the threat of deportation, then you really are only looking at, you know, for the voting base, a very very casual number. And whereas you think, oh, there's 1 million people in Prince George's County, well, when 22% is unable to vote, that poses a problem. And I will tell you that there has been several people in and around the county that wants to give our immigrants, migrants, if you will, the right to vote because they are working in various capacities. Have you given that any thought with C&J Migrant Solutions? Because I know a lot of mayors in and around Prince George's County actually wanted to take that to this 446th Congress legislative session.
So that is definitely a debatable conversation. You know, we live in this country where there's a lot of biases, right? And one of the main things that when we met that I had spoken about was because we don't know each other's culture, that creates the biases. It is a bit unfair that you will say, we work here, we do a lot of things, we contribute to the economy in a great deal. When you look at it, I think Governor Westmore even have said, there was a statement that came out that it was migrants do make up at least 22% of the work population here in Maryland, right? So that's actually a big number. So how can we make up such a great population, but then we are unable to vote, right? We're unable to say what our future is. On the flip side of that, it's given where you don't know the culture of America to be able to vote enough, right? So we do have that back and forth conversation and argument within the community. And I think that if we as people start coming together and sitting down and really having those conversations and putting those biases on the table, really listening to what we are saying, right? The back and forth of, migrants are trying to take over, not so much, right? We're really just trying to survive, right? It's about surviving. It's about giving my children an opportunity to experience something that I did not have, right? So I will be in favor of some, legislation or that would require for migrants to have a vote because it affects everybody. Whatever affects you, it affects me, right? Whatever affects me as a migrant, it affects you, right? Because it's all in the legislation.
Interesting point that you've made here. We're all impacted because we're all in this together.
Yes.
And as we look at the billions of passengers that came through Ellis Island, when we look at over 30 plus billion records, now 30 plus billion records came through Ellis Island. That tells you that immigration and travel, particularly in the United States of America, has been one of the lifebloods that's really built this nation. Yes. When we look at the migrant population and starting our family trees, I'll tell you, I recently did Ancestry.com. They had a 60% off sale. It was irresistible at that point. So I pulled my genetic coding, and I will tell you, it came back 31% Nigerian. Then it came back with Togo culture. It came back with Cameroon, the Bantu people. It came back with, a little bit of Mali, then indigenous Indian, Iroquois. So, honestly, if we look at our genetic coding in this second, third generation American, like I am, we are really all a hodgepodge of the migrants that either came through slave trade or that came through Ellis Island. And I even got French and a little bit of Scottish, believe it or not.
Yeah. So that is definitely one of the reasons why I am so passionate about bridging the gap through culture, right? I really stand on that phrase because in the language, I'm Jamaican. So in Patois, we'll say we mix up, right? Which meaning that we are in a pot, like a Creole pot, and we all blended together. So why are we having the biases that we do have because we are not born, right? We were implanted, right? Because once again, we are affected by the same thing. I like to use the example when I speak to say when we're filling out applications, on the application, it does not ask if I am Nigerian. It does not ask if I am Jamaican. It does not ask if I'm Cuban. It literally just says I am Black American. I am African American. That's what I am classified as. Therefore, whatever legislation that affects my American brothers and sisters, it affects me. Period. It's that simple, it's that cutthroat. And I think when we all look at culture and try to put that aside and really fight for the one thing that we know that we all deserve, which is humanity, which is rights to certain things, then we will have a successful society.
And there we are. There it is. Effective conveying the impact of diversity in our community. The diversity, equity, and inclusion is something that even this President Joseph R. Biden, has taken to heart. And as of June 25th, 2021, during the months of COVID, President Joseph R. Biden did sign an executive order, and it was 14035. 14035 is diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the federal workforce. It's the executive order that essentially gave full diversity of the nation and justifiably advances the equitable employment opportunities in and around our communities. And the reason why I bring that up is because in the District of Columbia, Maryland, as well as Virginia, the heart, soul beat of who we are is really surrounding government. So either in the county, the state, government is a piece of who we are.
Absolutely, absolutely, 100% of who we are. And this is why we have to fight so hard. This is why it is my land that we're still fighting for. We're still fighting for food. We're still fighting for basic human rights, which in this time and age, it should not be. I look at many of my clients that are here, they're refugees. And I call them children because, they're in their 20s. I'm a lot older. But I look at them and I said, oh, wow, how do you fight to come here? You went through ordeal leaving your country to come here just to go through another ordeal, right? I'm not saying it should be simple. Life is not simple at all. I don't expect life to be simple. The Bible definitely did not tell us that it will be a gravy train, right? It do come with hardship. But the hardship that they're facing, sometimes it's like, wow, did you really leave your country to come and face kind of the same situations?
And that you bring up a wonderful point. And why do immigrants come to the United States? Illegally in 2021, about 42% of the work done in the United States came out of immigrants that came by means other than green card or, seeking citizenship. 32% for school, which is an awesome way to enter into another nation. I had an opportunity to study abroad in college and took French in Canada, Quebec. So that is definitely an entry point. And then 23% in 2021 came through for family. And as you know, there's even in Great Britain, one of the concerns has been the migrants come to Great Britain for the free health care, and then they have their children there, and then their children are had for free, and they're, of course, British citizens. And when you look at the migrants and how they work, how they reunite, how they have families, how they're studying, how they seek the personal safety. And that's what it comes down to, the personal safety that the United States offers. And about 1.5 million who came in, of course, 42%, as I've given the numbers before, came in for work. So the equitable opportunities for work, the opportunities that the government allows for work, school, family, safety, and encouraging diversity, which is what I read in Executive Order 14035. Now, what I will
Absolutely.
say that with this diversity and bringing our migrants and our diverse communities together, we do build a more wholesome community, a community that often solves the bigger problems globally because of that diversity. Now, does your community in the education and training piece work with governments to help them see that point?
So we do. So I think I would say throughout this year, 2024, we have definitely been connecting with our council members and getting to be partner with them on certain outreach programs and opening up that conversation that they can see a little bit more because, you know, we are the organization that we take going out very seriously. We take being in our community very seriously. We go to churches. We have communication. We build family, unfortunately, not unfortunately, but fortunately with our clients. So the day to day, we are knowing what the struggle is. The day to day, we're knowing what's going on in their life, in their community. What are they struggling with? So a lot of that we do bring when I have meetings with our council members or with our delegate. I do bring that to them to the table to see what can be done. Because it has to be something. We can't just give up hands and throw in the towel and say, oh, well, immigration is a federal issue. Yes, it is a federal issue, but it also affects the states. It also affects our local municipalities that we do have to now take into full effect and how we're going to assess that.
Keep it 100. I really like the fact that you put in the whole of government. You went from the local to the county to the state when you talk about your delegates and hanging out with the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Now you're at the nation. So what I've noticed in the work, because I am categorically a global humanitarian, and I wear my pin. I'm also a Presidential Lifetime Achievement Award winner for volunteer service, winner from President Joseph R. Biden. But what I will say to you is this: the hard part is convincing the layers of government to modify the status quo. And that's a very difficult situation because and I will put a little layer of defense to the wisdom and power that is in the state of government. You can't see it all. And that's why the voice of the people, democracy, demo, people, kratos, rule, people rule. That's why the voice of the people is so needed. So when you're out and about, you're bringing the voice of all the migrants with you and you're telling their story. So can you give us some case stories of some of the migrants that you have worked with and worked through this dignity and respect process to either full citizenry or into a more prosperous, profitable life as they're in their migrant status?
Yeah. So a few migrants that we have worked with, two got citizenship last August.
Oh, yeah.
And that was definitely amazing to be involved in that process after filing for their family petition and then waiting that 5 years. So it pretty much took almost 10 years to get them to full citizenship. And just to watch the struggle that they went through, the fear. I think a lot of the struggle is because of fear, right? I think it's the unknown, the whether or not I'm going to get approved or not, whether or not it's going to be getting denied. Now I need an attorney. Now I'm probably in deportation. Uh, and you know, that fear that consumed all of us when it comes to immigration, right? But thank God they got through, they got citizenship, and now they have, you know, the jobs that they had prior to citizenship, they have honestly let those go and moved on to something different. So that was actually good to see that they found self-worth, right? In doing more. A lot of the other clients that we have been dealing with are refugees. Um, and it was definitely not surprising, but surprising on the fact of how long it's been taking just to get work permit. So it's been, you know, and I know a lot of people have been talking about it on the aspects of, well, now you've done asylum, but now you still have to wait 3 to 4 months before you can work, right? And that, once again, is also still up in the air because, once again, immigration, USCIS have the authority to say if you can or you cannot. That is also a stickler for me, because if you are let into the country and you're given the opportunity to get asylum, it should not take you 4 months for you to work, because now you are dependent on taxpayers' dollars for that 4 months, right? Now you're dependent on shelter. You're depending on somebody providing you food and medical. So if whatever happens to you within that time, you only have a year to file that asylum. So within that year, if you have not filed asylum, then once again, you are left at the hands of taxpayers' dollars. And our dollars are already stretched to the max in different situations. It's so much that we need to really start figuring out when it comes to immigration. So a lot of our clients have moved on. They have gotten their family citizenship. They have gotten their work permit, and they have gotten their citizenship. I love working with one of the field agents from USCIS. She is an awesome person. And if there's a problem, and she's the person on the ground, right? So if there is something that I need to know I can pick up the phone or I can send her an email and she will respond to me. So I can't say it's bad. I just think that there's more that can be done.
Candace, I didn't know the process was 10 years for the most part. And then I am just, it's like, right? Because if you seek citizenship, now you are literally putting a target on your chest to get it done or get done. You know, honestly, your status quo is being put on display for responsible action. And it's really in your will well and with the housing situation. Now, as the mayor of the city of Glenarden, I know many of our residential houses are locked up now. We are building some new houses at, Glenarden off of Bright Street Road, Glenarden Hills, but ultimately those houses will be $300,000 to buy. And then of course it's about $1,800 to $1,500 a month for the new houses that we have put there as an expansion to the residential development task ask, if you will, from the county. Now, with all of that being said, there are several budgetary issues to solve, but let's be clear, there isn't any partnerships or net goals when it comes down to filing for what we call the promise of citizenship in Maryland. Particularly as we look at it, most of our citizens live on very, very fixed, deliberate family meal plans, deliberate, family involvements in the community, and children, for the most part, are not really actively engaged in the education system, which makes it harder still for them to get, scholarships and fundings, particularly when they graduate. So you have really opened my eyes to I think, a dark part of the immigrant story that, of course, being, like I said, a third generation American, I hadn't had to really discover that. I kind of was born into the silver spoon mentality, you see. I will tell you, we have another young lady from Jamaica. She is the National Hall of Fame inductee into the class of 2024, Miss Keisha Thorpe. I had the unique pleasure of awarding her with the proclamation for her $1 million win as an educator. She is also, considered a Nobel Prize educator. She's the assistant principal, Charles Flowers there, Prince George's County Public Schools. She really is an educated light when it comes down to the migrant story, feeding young the students and their families through programs and nonprofits that she set up to help the Black immigrants in the United States. And because she and her sister, and if you hear her story, came from Jamaica, essentially fled from Jamaica into America on track and field scholarships. So now that has become a heart and soul of what she does, particularly with the social and cultural challenges and racial biases that she faced and her sister faced. She has won the Maryland Medal of Excellence. She has advocated for the governor to provide educational funding for low-income students and also to have equitable advancements and placements and courses and competitive applying for college, earning scholarships. I mean, the thing is, when you have the migrant story, and this is the message that I want to push tonight, you have to somehow get your voice out there. And by with and through ballots, by with and through Maryland Public Information Act requests, you are able to assist and help governments get educated on what the story is. And that's the beauty of this mayoral forum, is you get to tell us what the story looks like on the other side of the table, right? When we look at legacy, there is a lot to be said about the legacy of our migrant community. If you look at much of the national archived national treasures, like the Washington Monument, all those were built by migrants. We helped told the American story. And that's really the superpower of the migrant family, is the net benefits that they bring to the U.S. economy without even getting thanked for it in many accords. So this is based largely, of course, on the disproportionate recognitions as well as education levels that are often afforded to them because of what you highlighted earlier, which is the time frame that it takes to actually obtain full citizenship. And even just to get the green card, I can imagine is just as arduous, because you left your nation. So you have to go back to your nation and get paperwork, which you may not have, because not everybody has birth certificates. And many people just have papers that say, this is the year approximate date. And so it's really hard when you have a very rigid system in America that says, I need a month, day, and a year for your birthday. I need a social security number, or I need you to go and get a citizen number. Oh, you can't get that. What do they get when they have to have an identification?
So thank God we live in Maryland, right? So you are you are able to actually get an ID if you have a ITIN number and you are paying taxes. So if you are a immigrant and you cannot get a social security number, IRS will allow you to get an ITIN number that you can pay your taxes and a ID. So it's just an ID, it's not a driver's license, it's just an ID. When that law was passed, I was definitely excited because you need something. A lot of places that you go to, you're not going to just walk in there and show a passport from Guinea or a passport from, Jamaica. They look at you like, what is that, right? So it is definitely good that they can, even though that is another 6 to 8 weeks, that you have to wait. But it is something that, the law do allow. migrants to get if they, since they do not have a social security number, so they can pay taxes. And that's one of the big things that I do recommend people doing is paying your taxes, because then you are contributing, right? Then you're not looking as, oh, I just came to take. You're actually putting back into society that you are using, that everyone else can pull from that pot. So I do recommend people paying their taxes, including immigrants. Pay your taxes. You can go ahead and pay your taxes because it is definitely needed. It's actually what's benefiting you in the long run.
Absolutely. And the taxes come back by way of school improvements, by way of street improvements, by way of bringing in and soliciting marketing for retail to make the quality of life better. So thank you for educating on the necessity of taxes in a community. And a lot of, if you didn't grow up with it, i.e. If you didn't grow up Southern Baptist like I did, paying 10%, you don't really, you're not comfortable with, okay, well, where's that money going? That's money I need in my house, to feed my children. So thank you for that. But I will say this, in 2022, there was something called the Northern Triangle countries that sent about over 541,000 to 2 million migrants into the southern U.S. border. And they were mostly coming in from El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. So when we look at the decades of civil war and political instabilities that have happened globally, that is also a nasty truth about the immigration and the migrant story. Okay, evading civil war is ranking very high on the list on why personnel will migrate to another country, i.e., like we gave the list earlier, safety was a part of it. And when you simply are striving to survive, sometimes the alternative of staying in your country is not healthy, and the homicide rates, mostly in Latina-based countries, was on the rise in 2022, and it spiked with gang violence that also led to governmental crackdowns. And as we see in many of our nation of Africa countries, there's always the fight to prevent the usurping of authority with political coups and such. So Biden has put about $4 billion in a plan to address just the Central American migration flow. 4 billion, right? So, and when we're talking about how we're addressing that, it's like you said, the quality of life. What are we doing for respect and dignity? And how are we helping with the housing market? And I tell you, I got a solution for some of the housing market. When I go on some of these house buying sites and I see houses in Baltimore for $1, those are areas that you can build up communities that will allow, as you are making a petition for citizenry, or a petition for a green card, or a petition for a residential ID number, this is an area where the government, hint, hint, may want to start expanding, because it will give you subsidies and equities that'll come from the federal level because of the quality of life that you must put on the ground for a human living in those spaces. So it really is a stressor for me to see houses in dilapidated state, particularly when you tell me we've got, nearly 22% of Prince George's population, which is a migrant population or an immigrant population, which may be undocumented.
You are touching on a subject that is very, very, very important to my outreach when I speak to different government officials. A lot of these refugees and through my different group chats are looking for housing, right? It is so, so important. But then I walk on a stretch and see a house that's boarded up, right? I walk on a stretch and see houses that are not in use, properties that are not in use. And once again, I am not about, honestly, I'm not about free all the time. I do think that you do have to work and make your way, right? I definitely 100% believe in that. But I think there are policies that we can develop that will allow migrants to work and pay their own, for them to work and pay for their housing. And there is not one migrant that I know that will not say, hey, I will take that deal. If I just have somewhere to live, I will take that. You know, when it comes to these things, it's what is driving mental health in the migrant community, right? Because if you don't have somewhere to sleep at night, then my mental health is off. If I can't find food for my kids, then what are you telling me about the way of life? These are things that can be implemented. These are simple policies. It don't take a strategy. Honestly, it don't take 10 years just to implement simple policies that will just make the community work, because this is about community. This is about building a community. It's simple math for me, right? That take some of these properties that are dilapidated and turn them into transitional homes, right? We're talking about centers that are overpopulated, right? When I go down, I was a flight attendant a few years ago and have to pass a community center on my way to Reagan Airport. And at 7 o'clock, those people were on the street. Why? Why am I putting somebody out at 7 o'clock in the morning? My 10-year-old don't even like waking up at 7 o'clock in the morning for school. But yet still we have homes that are in condition that we can fix. We have several $billion, honestly, that we are wasting. And if we can put that back into our communities, put that back into the country and make it work, I mean, you can't beat it.
We are talking about an integration strategy. We're talking about building a community formula for solutions. That's what we're talking about here. And I'm so glad to have you on as we talk about human resources, DEI&A, fair work, equal pay. We've also talking about one fair wage for folks that work in the service industries where, you know, a waitress gets $3 an hour, but we should give her one fair wage. They do it in Europe, one fair wage. Tipping is optional because they get a real paycheck, you see. When we look at tackling these problems, we ought to get it right. We have to get it right because we have to find solutions, and we have to give real world solutions considering our agencies that we have who we are paying good money to sit down and think of solutions to help us in a state of equity, diversity, and inclusion. It's been stated by the president, it's not going away. Pandora's box is open. We must face this now with a more positive response. When we look at the multifaceted identities that are encompassing many of the aspects of our geographical locations, be it race, be it gender, be it even sexuality, the abilities that many people have, particularly concerning their faith, okay? Faith took a forefront in a lot of the decision-making of old as to who was allowed to be incorporated into the American dream, right? Because if you wasn't Protestant or if you wasn't Christian, then you wasn't really adapted in our communities. Now you see Hinduism, you see Muslimism, you see Catholicism, you see all of the faith-based organizations. I even saw a Korean church the other day, which, you know, it just speaks to the beautiful tapestry that America is. And if we have to come up with more solutions that will allow those that want to be a paying participant to have a more critical role in shaping the perspective. And I'm an advocate for the people. That's what I do. I fight for people. And I really believe that we need to bring our migrants to the table. And with your company, C&J Migrant Solutions, LLC, you have an ability, and I would just say, anybody out there, let's drag her in, because the stories you tell are the stories that can't be told for the risk of deportation, much of which. So you are a safe zone, if that makes sense, for helping us and the government understand the tapestry that we're dealing with. And as we're focusing on this particular mission, which is called the diversity, equity, and inclusion and accessibility, because let's not forget those that are hidden disability community members. Many of them feel like migrants and immigrants because if you have a hidden disability, most of the time you're not accepted in the community either. You're treated as an other. And so it's really, we look at even sexuality in this day and age. The cultural backgrounds that we fight against, they're not taught, okay? This is what we bring with us, right? We are a sum total of a lot of history. And as I just gave you just a glimpse into the 32 cultural nationalities that make up this mayor, okay, all of those histories are inside of here somewhere. 1%, 2%, minutia percent. 31% is the largest that I have. But it takes 5 cultures to make up 80% of who I am. That's very telling when you think about, the migrant story. When we look at emphasizing the necessity to allocate time and resources towards fostering a better understanding, I am honored to have you online with me tonight. We're running right at our time, but I just wanted to tell you, and you won't be able to see it. Maybe you can. Yay, there you have it. So I have crafted and created this year's Mayoral Multicultural DEI&A Mother's Day Tea Proclamation. Each year, I give a proclamation to multiculturalism, diversity, equity, and inclusion is now taking the center scene. And we'll be bringing out Elizabethton High School, who runs an all-girl high school entrepreneurial training program where they're mentoring young ladies into aspiring and dreaming up their futures and actually creating businesses that can put money in their pockets today while they go to college or, build lives for tomorrow. And part of this includes a decision-making process. And I said, name diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility to foster democratic principles of the United States of America, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. For programs, for policies to be effective, the people affected by the decisions must be involved in formulating the solutions. I said it is a basic self-governing principle to provide all manner of people a seat at the table of great change in the workplace, in faith-based places of worship, the vast industries to include the likes of artificial intelligence, expanding a transforming world called the Internet of Things, making educational programs with a shared aim of uniting people, nations, and cultures for peace and sustainable future, essential domestically and globally. So this is a part of my mayoral proclamation for 2024, and it goes, even further to expand the necessities of economic statutes to focus on, not just who we are as a physique, as a race, as a, as a home, as an economic base, okay? But multiculturalism is the realization that we belong to several different cultures at one time. So we are all multiculturalist, really. There isn't, I don't know that there's any Puritans left. Was for a lack of better words, I think we're all a sum total. We're a sum total of the groups that we associate with. We're a sum total of the organizations like C&J Migrant Solutions. Here, we're interviewing them. Mayor Cross, City of Glenarden. We're a sum total of a lot of different cultures. And when we look at the migrant story, that is part of the fabric of America. It's what built America. We have to return to a more progressive, positive dialogue on how to positively attribute responsibilities and surge to build community lack into community wealth. We have to surge for that. And I think our
Yes.
immigrants population is a big part of that.
Yes, yes. I don't have anything else to say. I think you summed that up perfectly. The other thing that I would want to bring to your attention, and there's two schools that I know are currently doing that right now, which is bringing the programs into the schools for the parents. Because what we are also realizing is one of the reasons that we're having failing grades, it's because the population, which is a mixed population of migrants, if your parents do not understand English, right, they do not know about technology, then how can they help you to pass a class? So once again, we have all the resources for the children in the schools, but what are the resources for the parents that we know teaching goes both ways? It's from home and it's in school. So if I'm not getting that teaching at home, how do I do better in school? So I do know that there are two schools right now that have asked us to bring these programs into the schools for the parents, which when they reached out to us, it was a no-brainer. I have a 10-year-old and he has struggled with reading since COVID. And to know that it has taken him 4 years to get caught up to the reading level that he is right now, with much work for myself. And I actually had to get him an outside tutor and school. So 3 different levels we had to go through to get him to the reading level. If we're living in migrant communities and migrants are attending these schools, they only have one outlet, and that is school, because they don't have the help at home. So we have to get parents trained up to be able to assist their children. If we want to see higher grades and higher graduation, we have to get this done.
So when you do the parent training processes, is there a cost involved, or are we using grant processes?
So we are also a nonprofit. So it's an LLC and a nonprofit. So on a nonprofit, we do a lot of services. We do only charge $50 for ESL classes. We do look for grants that will cover, the teachers that we have, and we are blessed enough to have teachers that have dedicated their time to say, look, I will do this. I will only take a stipend, to come and teach this class. So we are definitely blessed enough to have that. So we do look for grants that will offset the cost, but we only charge $50 for our ESOL classes and our technology classes, and that's for the entire period. Our ESOL classes are 10 weeks, or technology classes are 5 weeks. And we provide the equipment, the laptops, so they don't have to, because it's about touch and feel, knowing how to do a word, knowing how to do, create a resume, things like that. The basic necessity that, once again, we are privileged here, to have learned and have been taught that other migrants don't.
Absolutely. Thank you for all of that. So $50 for a Be Yourself class, and then the teachers are paid through the grants process. What's the average cost of a teacher for English as a second language, which is the ESOL, English as a second language, ESL, and then technology classes at 5 weeks?
So we only including materials, for a class of 20 and 10, we only charge a total of I think it's $2,500 for that entire process. Out of that, as I said, majority of our teachers, they dedicate their time, so we only pay them between $30 to $35 for the class. The rest of that they compensate in their, in their generous hours. But
Absolutely.
typically we know, these classes can range between $300 to $600. And because we're a nonprofit, we're not trying to stretch pockets of migrants that are currently not working, but you do need the tools in order to find a job. So it doesn't make sense that I charge you something that you don't have when you're trying to look for a job. I need to help you to get a job that you can be able to pay and make your way.
And you can also take scholarships to, help migrants who have made the petition. And we know the clock's already ticking on the deportation window. So I am excited to hear how just successfully you're prioritizing inclusivity. It is just a light. You are a light. It's been a joy to have you on this mayoral forum. Sometimes I wish our mayoral forums had more and more minutes in them, because we start to talk and we get into this vibe, and then it's like, oh, it's time to go. But, I'm grateful for the collective success that you've had thus far. I am honored. I called it, I know God makes no mistakes when we cross paths with people who have a deliberate connection and the deliberate networking that we're doing in and around our communities. We are achieving a sustainable success. My motto in the city of Glenarden is moving the mission forward. And many people, when I came in, they said, "What's that? What do you mean by mission?" Well, this is a mission. Waking up in the morning with arthritic legs is a mission. Okay. When we think about a mission, it is, what's the goal? What's the target? What's the focus? What is going to make it better for either ourselves, our neighbors, or the future? And many people that know me will know that I often speak about that second and third generation. In fact, that's my passion. Even my children's children have to have a success strategy so that they can soar. And they need to have abilities that have processes that are deliberate, so that they have a reconciled truth that they can live in the future. And this is what you're talking about, giving our immigrants in our community a reconciled truth. It's so important, the message that you have brought. And I just want you to know that I'm grateful. Again, I just want to record those numbers. 119,000 non-citizens reside in Prince George's County. 454,000 reside in the state of Maryland. Okay. And those are all facing potential deportation. And ultimately, we have 201,700 immigrants in Prince George's County who reside, which means they are certified, either green card or naturalized citizens now. And that's about 22% of the Prince Georgians. So they're part of the gorgeous Prince George's story. So 921,900 immigrants reside in Maryland as a state, which is about 15% of the total population. So, Candace, I am honored again to have you on. Today, citizens, we have been on with C&J Migrant Solutions Foundations, LLC, and as we now know, nonprofit to help with English as a second language, but also technology classes, because if we're training our children, our families have to be able to help them. So we're training our families as well. You're meeting the bookends with success. And we are so honored to have you as a member of our citizenry in the mighty city of Glenarden, the city on the move. President, CEO, C&J Migrant Solutions, Ms. Candace Borkins. I'm Mayor Cashenna Cross. We've been moving the mission forward. Candace, last words for you.
I just want to thank you so much, Mayor, for your mission and for all that you have been doing in Glenarden. I have been raised in Maryland since I was 15 years old, and I lived in Harford County majority of my life. I moved out of Harford County and moved to Georgia, then lived in Virginia, but Maryland has always been home. And moving to Glenarden, it's definitely a big difference, and you can see people working together. That's one of my favorite things about Glenarden area is you do see people working together. You do see people that do try to help. And I definitely love that. And it's because of a great leader like yourself as to why we have what we have. So I definitely want to thank you. I know we're going to do great things together and move the mission forward.
All right, Ms. Candace Borkins, let's move the mission forward. I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been the Mayoral Community Forum. We have been online with Ms. Candace Borkins, and we have been discussing our title topic, which is Evolving the Diaspora, Multicultural Approaches in Our Municipalities. Mayor Cashenna A. Cross, keep moving the mission forward.